And you thought the Crimson Fleet was problematic. You thought that the United Colonies just had to worry about competing factions, disturbances in the settled systems, pirates, bootlickers, and maybe some bilge rats. Well, today a new scourge has infected the UC, and oh my goodness, is it concerning. Moonman 1 here with a new transmission, and I'm talking all about the latest controversy for Starfield, the big problem that angry fans have brought up. Maybe they're not even fans at all, but we need to discuss. And no, I'm not talking about 30 frames per second, even though Commander Howard confirmed that himself, locked on consoles at 30 frames per second. We can dive into that in a different pod, but for now, it's all about the loading screens. Ah yes, the evil, omnipresent loading screens that now have been sussed out from Starfield. We'll be presenting gameplay evidence, gameplay disevidence, and discussing exactly what fans are pissed off about and how this problem might not be a problem at all. Let me preface this by saying Starfield is an Xbox exclusive on console. You need to know that first and foremost. Now then, this is the piece of footage in question that has caused a stir amongst the settled systems. This door right here. The science facility, open A, the lock on glues, and we get this small Starfield logo approximation in the bottom right corner. Check this out. For about 1001, we have a load. Now this has ruffled the feathers of many spacefarers out there because modern RPGs shouldn't have load screens. In fact, even outdated RPGs don't have load screens. We're talking about games like Witcher 3 not having loads from exterior to interior environments. We're talking about games like Cyberpunk 2077. We're talking about games like the modern masterpiece Elden Ring, allowing you to seamlessly enter dungeons and deep, dark caves without any semblance of a load. Now keep in mind that there are loads between fast travel, there are loads between death, but there are no loads like this. Now, if you're a fan of Bethesda games, you're quite familiar, and in fact, you might be jolly at this 1 second load. It runs very, very quickly. For a game baked into consoles with SSDs, it seems like maybe this should not be an issue. And so, people, inevitably, as they will, took issue with load screens being a part of Starfield. Now, load screens have been a part of many games, even if you don't know it, because they are hidden amongst transitional scenes and sequences. We have Miles Morales riding the subway, Commander Shepard riding the elevators. There are plenty of moments where load screens are present, you're just playing it and waiting. But a load screen like this is something that people take extreme issue with. When we see the hatch to our ship, it's got a prompt. Board, cockpit, you're not seamlessly entering this ship. And so it seems like there will be definite load screens as we move from certain exteriors to interiors. Now, there are cool instances of no load screens, as we see disembarking from our ship in last year's gameplay presentation onto the planet Crete, and that is seamless. But we don't know, are we loading into this little port area from our actual main ship? The cockpit, the hallway, all of those major rooms. Are we loading into this and then descending to Crete? Most likely. Another good example, though, is right over here at the coffee shop, Terra Brew. It sure looks like this is a seamless transition between the New Atlantis city exterior and the interior. In fact, we see a door open on the right side of your screen, indicating that certain buildings, perhaps those that are smaller, or perhaps those that do not include combat, will provide a seamless experience. Now, what is all the issue here? Over a second of loading screens, a dip into the black as we enter a lock? Honestly, as someone that has waited light years to arrive at my destination, I'm not seeing the problem. I understand that Bethesda games are kind of smited with these load screens that maybe other RPGs do not have to deal with, but the issue here is that Bethesda games are going for big, bad, and absolutely bombastic. How many other RPGs do you know where you can stack 600 sandwiches within your ship? How many RPGs do you know where you can visit 1,000 planets? Now, Bethesda is not lazy, they are clever as well, as it seems like they're using this part of your ship from cockpit to main cabin as a bit of a hidden load. They'll be taking advantage of hidden load screens as well, and quite frankly, I would almost rather have a second of black rather than having to walk my character through a subway station or wait on an elevator. Having a active load in many ways is more distracting than a passive load. Let me set down the controller for a second, take a deep breath, or just close my eyes. It's tiring out here for a spaceman. I feel like when something is this detailed, when every item can be picked up, when all sorts of things can be interacted with at a level that Elden Ring couldn't quite dream of, a simple load screen is not too much a burden to bear. Look at these environments. Have you seen Elden Ring's environments? I'm not trying to disparage a different game from a different year, but I am saying that that game does not have the environmental density of a Bethesda title, let alone the environmental density of Starfield. Starfield is all about interaction, interactivity, and interconnectedness. This Crete Research Lab here is a great example of how the game is going to function. This comes from last year's gameplay demonstration. We're out in a world where we can scan just about everything. We can see just about everything. This is not Elden Ring, where bodies lurk on the floor and there's not much else. This is not Witcher 3, which conveniently did not have interior load screens, but inconveniently had a far more barren world. Now this sequence here is a bit interesting, and one that I want to bring to your attention, because we see that we're able to enter the sort of entryway, the interior, if you will, of the building seamlessly. It then looks like there is a door up ahead that reminds me a lot of the lock showcased in this year's direct presentation. So it seems like you'll be able to seamlessly enter certain aspects of a building, but then to load into maybe the quest, maybe the combat, you will quite probably need an actual load. But as judging by the footage they've shown us, it's a second. Now some will worry that this is a highly optimized build, perhaps something that they have doctored, and are requesting to see minutes of unedited gameplay so we know exactly how these loads play out across a session. I don't know that Bethesda will ever show that before launch. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, especially because those who are critical will nitpick no matter what is shown. But when we're talking about a game with this much going on, with this many areas, with this much to explore, with this much flexibility, and running on Bethesda's creation engine, which obviously has interior and exterior cells, that is the way they differentiate environments, that is the way this is designed. There was never going to be a world where we would not have some subtle loads. But again, I ask you, would you rather stand in an elevator or perhaps a decontamination chamber and have no load but be waiting awkwardly time and time again? Or have a second or two to catch your breath, check your text, and maybe even say hello to a fellow spacefarer, and then you're right back in the action. There is so much going on in Starfield, not to mention the dynamic nature of procedurally generated planets and areas. This game begs for a loading screen. And even though we are in the great year 2023, with SSDs a part of our systems and all sorts of technological advancements since games like Fallout 3 and Skyrim, to me, this is a nothing burger. This is a nothing burger, and if you've ever been to space, you know those things are actually delicious. I recommend a nothing burger because it soothes the soul, it calms the spirit, and as Moonman1 loves to say, eat and be merry. This game has a ton of food, if you're not fond of the nothing burger, but swallow it up and be merry. A second of load in exchange for 1,000 planets? A second of load in exchange for a fully customizable character? A world where slugs like that lurk along? A world where enemies could be hiding around any corner? Creatures, creations, and even coffee? I'll take that deal. I'll take that trade-off. A second for Todd Howard's magnum opus. This is a small pill we can all swallow. And to my fellow Constellation crew, who feels these load screens are but a blip in the system, respond to those critiquing not with pestilence and anger, but with a delicious food item from our system. Find something absolutely appetizing within the Starfield galaxy and mention that in reply. Let's silence these naysayers with something to tantalize their taste buds. This is the way of the Moonmen. I also challenge anyone comparing Starfield and the load screens to The Witcher, the Cyberpunk, any of the others, even the Elden Ring. Show me a side-by-side, and let's see what you've got. Show me a world as vast and varied as what we have here. Show me a united front as strong as the United Colonies. Let's take a real peek at Geralt of Rivia. Let's take a hard look at Miles of New York. Do these characters even dare seek the sights that we shall seek once in the galaxy? Do these dear wanderers even dream of something as spectacular as our settled systems? The answer, no matter what you say or what you think, is a resounding no. Starfield's scope and scale is attempting something far grander than we've seen, possibly from any game, in any era, in any galaxy. And I don't think it's right to side by side with something that just can't measure up. At this point, I have to believe that those nitpicking, critiquing, and crying over the small load screen taking place between exterior and interior are either salty that Starfield is not coming to their PlayStation console, are looking for something to nitpick, or possibly, most likely, are experiencing the feeling one experiences when seeing everyone love something. There's a part of us that just wants to critique and crush the spirit of joy that exists when a large mass of individuals find themselves harmoniously connected in the enjoyment of a singular unit. That's what's happening with Starfield. A massive amount of joy has been unleashed upon the greater galaxies. The settled systems are feeling just a little more settled. It would only make sense that Friends of the Crimson Fleet, defectors, and pirates would look to stir up trouble on a day as hallowed as this. From my perspective, the load screens are totally fine. You won't hear me whining or complaining about 1 second between beautiful big procedural planet and an awesome, exciting, mysterious interior. This game plays well, this game plays massive, this game plays for eternity. That matters far more than the seconds you might spend sitting idly. And again, I remind you, crawling through as a character, elevator waiting as a character, subway shuffling as a character, are these really that much better than a second of darkness? Space is the great beyond. It is the dark beyond. And I find it fitting that we have a second to experience and appreciate exactly what a spacefarer like myself sees when I journey out there. I hope you can understand my take. I'm curious to hear yours. For now, though, Moonman 1, over and out.